the revolution starting inside. An instrumental part of Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Counter economics. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist.
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 Nexus. Agorist.
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 The Agorist Next podcast. I'm Brandon. I've got my great co-host Dag. How you doing, Dag?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Ready for part 2 of this. I got my my whiskey this time.
Hell yeah. So yeah, we've got part 2 with Mr. Harding himself. Before we get into it, let's we got to give it up to our sponsors, Presearch. Super honored to have them sponsor us as always, and great decentralized search engine where you earn crypto as you search. And if you want to do a keyword stake or something, or like an affiliate link, you can put in like, well, let's say you've gotten an affiliate link for like Rabbit Feed or something, right? Well, you could do a keyword stake on Rabbit and Feed, and then Rabbit and Feed, and drive traffic to that affiliate link, and so it's a great platform. It's not just like, for me, it's not just like adding up the coins, right? I use those coins. They've got a use case to
not just hodling. You're getting something out of it.
Yeah, not just hodling.
And they're and I've been using their browser pretty much exclusively on my phone as well. So
yeah, and that's a great way
that
to
works pretty well.
To stack sats, if you will, is to use the search engine. So yeah. With that said, we're going to go over the other, 8 or 9? Actually, there's 17 goals. We're on goal 8.
Yeah, 17. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we've got 9 more goals to go with Jeremiah Harding. So how you doing, Jeremiah?
Reasonable. Just got hydrated, ready to now, of course, fed
pets and cats.
Yeah, well, so I live with 5 other people. People can feel free to support the content if they want to see that change. But currently, I live with 5 other people, and that comes with restrictions. And one of the restrictions is you're not allowed to have pets here. So we sort of like compensate for that by feeding the strays. And my contribution to that is to make sure that they're watered, and also I give them a daily serving of cheese. So they appreciate that.
Cool.
Nice. Kitties like cheese.
So we've got, where are we at?
Yeah, so previously we went over, and I made this tweet about this too. Previously we went over basically the fact that like this corporatist, fascist hellhole controlling system, UN bastards, they are using language about promoting gender equality and water cleanliness and shit, and like education and more, that sort of thing, to couch their agenda, which they plainly call an agenda. Like, I'm not making an agenda 2030, to couch their agenda of basically world domination in like the nicest terms possible, so that nobody's gonna ask questions about it. And if anybody does, well, you wouldn't possibly be an enemy of sustainable development, would you? You wouldn't possibly want these poor people to X, would you? Well, I'm here to be the conspiracy theorist asshole. I already did that for an hour, and it's hour 2 time. So, promote the goal 8. To get back into it, for those of you who haven't heard the previous episode, you should probably catch up. Promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all.
How could you be against that, man? Come on.
Yeah, right? Per capita economic growth, and they're not even, so they take to 0.5 in this to start saying by 2030 again. So they're just sort of, this is a general goal. They don't even have a time frame on any of these four first things.
The fact that a lot of these you pointed out do say they start in 2020. I mean, hey, man, coincidences happen. It's a nice round number and all. But, man, 2020 really gave them a lot of opportunity to, kick some of these into high gear.
Yeah. No, that was, we're not conspiracy theorists here. That would be evil. So their first sustained per capita economic growth in accordance with national circumstances, and in particular, at least 7%. I love how they say percent instead of just using a fucking symbol. Gross domestic product growth per annum in the least developed countries. They always use this flowery bullshit. It's 7% annum instead of year. What? Why? Don't do that. Achieve higher levels of economic productivity through diversification, technological upgrading, and innovation, including through a focus on high value added and labor intensive sectors. Remote development-oriented policies that support productive activities, decent job creation, entrepreneurship, creativity, and innovation, and encourage the formalization and growth of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, including through access to financial services. Improve progressively through 2030. Hey, we got a time frame finally. Global resource efficiency and consumption and production, and endeavor to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation in accordance with the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production, with developed countries taking the lead. Ooh! Oh, so countries like the US get to take the lead. We're developed. We've developed to a certain extent. We're developed. The other places, they're not done yet. We need to civilize them. The other places are undeveloped. There's no development there. So we need the developed countries to take the lead. And when they do that, for those of you who have listened to the previous episode, you know that a lot of this is just basically them getting a new workforce to power the machines for lower wages, since they can't get most people here to do it. And for, of course, shittier work conditions, like the kinds that Nestle and other chocolate companies fucking will all. So basically, those things will all be designed so that the what would have previously been called first world countries can control the smaller countries. It's about control. That's why they say take the lead, because these developed countries get to tell the undeveloped countries what to do. And of course, we got to be doing it too. So it's a control system here too. Otherwise, we're not taking the lead. We're leading from behind, or whatever the thing is. I always sounded kind of like a euphemism for anal sex, but like that's a quibble I have.
I mean, it does sound like that, but I mean, it's kind of the case. I mean, you're kind of fucking them,
Yeah. By 2030, this is 8.5. Achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including for young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value. It's more of that shit.
Is it in 2015? I guess it was still okay for there to only be women and men, right?
Yeah.
Just not however people identify.
So my general thing is like, value is subjective. Equality is impossible. Okay, let me just tangent for a short bit. I want anyone out there who thinks equality is possible even to describe to me two exactly equal particles. And you can't do it because there are no two exactly alike particles. There are going to be differences between those two particles, no matter how similar they are. So if two particles can't be the same, then two collections of particles can't be the same, and a social system based on those collections of particles cannot ensure equality because it's not physically fucking possible. So whenever you see people demanding equality, just understand that they're demanding government, because ultimately you can't equalize people. You can't equalize anything. Equality doesn't work. Instead, stop stopping people and let them be, like, to the best of their ability, what they can be. And as long as they're not directly harming anyone, get the fuck out of their way. And that will help even it'll help minorities, because they'll stop having such hard times getting into the work that they want to do. It'll open up the markets that do exist to new competition, thus driving up the quality of products and bringing down prices. Just get the fuck out of people's way. Don't try to equalize. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of people being free to do with their bodies what they want. That's real liberation, not this fucking Gloria Steinem trash.
Amen.
Yeah, whenever I think of equality, I think of just like more control, you know.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say...
How are you going to equalize everybody? Well, you have to have this like centralized like force to say, hey, that's not equal. That's not equal. Like, you know, you have to have this entity to be able to equalize everything. So
right.
It would be fair for me to say I do want the government to treat everybody equally. But, you know, it's obviously like none, right?
The government fundamentally can't treat everybody equally, though, and that's part of the problem. The government itself is an organization that fundamentally protects the interests of those best for their pocketbook and for their power, which means that they're fundamentally going to protect the capital class first. It's a state capitalist society that is fascist at this point, and it's never going to treat people equally because that would kill the government eventually. So like, and again, they couldn't even do it. Like, social systems aren't going to be able to do what physics can't. So
sure.
That, like, I always piss people off when I say that too. Let me be very clear here, and I'm not saying that people should treat people unethically. Absolutely not. What I am saying is don't try to make things equal. Equal isn't going to be real. There are a lot of people who are a lot better than me at a lot of things. And until I get as good as them, I will not be worth as much in their field. Period. Equality is bullshit. Just be better individually. Be the absolute best you can be. That's how you win. Anyway.
This was winning with Jeremiah Hart.
Right. So I think we were on, so sustainably reduce the proportion of youth not in employment, education, or training. What does that mean? And how is that not advocating child labor? Anyway, don't worry,
they address that.
Take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor and modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor. So that's not everything, though, including recruitment and use of child soldiers, and by 2025 end child labor in all its forms. Maybe. Or maybe you'll just make it worse by empowering the dictators who do the thing that you don't like, at least what you say you don't like. Because that's what always ends up happening. They always end up empowering some sort of like regime change so that things will get, quote, better in the region. And then when they don't get better, they surprise Pikachu their way to more funding. How could we have foreseen this happening? It's happened every single other time. Whoops, we did it. But we need more money. Give us more money. We'll not do it this time.
Surprised Pikachu. Such a good...
I don't know.
It took me a second.
I've been in super cynical mode for like a year now, so this is the result of that. So
I think everyone has to be a little bit. I mean, just to like, even if there's like super positive people, you have to have a little bit, just because. I mean, you know, look at the world we're living in. Now I can't even fly back to the as of November 8th. I mean, I can't even fly back to the U.S. if I want to, unless I'm vaccinated. So yeah, it's it's the world that we're living in.
And plus, like, I've been on this beat of all this like tyranny for years, and like specifically the COVID stuff for about 2 years now. And the stuff you both can verify because you read my shit like early on. Everything that I've said would happen is happening or is in the works. So but people didn't believe me, and people got to, pass off my content as insane rantings of a conspiracy theorist. So, it's like I might as well just dive in and be the asshole they want me to be, Anyway.
Fuck yeah.
So protect labor rights and promote safe and secure working environments for all workers, including migrant workers, in particular women migrants and those in precarious employment. Devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism that creates jobs and promotes local culture and products. Strengthen the capacity of domestic financial institutions to encourage and expand access to banking, insurance, and financial services for all. And then 8A and B, increase aid for trade support for developing countries, in particular least developed countries, including through the integrated framework for trade-related technical assistance to least developed countries. They've always got to have these fucking long-ass names so that they can justify another acronym on more government forms. By 2020, develop and operationalize a global strategy for youth employment and implement the Global Jobs Pact of the International Labor Organization. That's good. We need more kids working. That'll solve the economic.
So there's a couple things, and on this, and I know some further ones we'll be getting to in a second, but in particular, on let's say like 8.10 there, where it says financial services for all. I'm like, yeah, crypto already handled that. Yeah,
it did.
But like you're going to point out, or have pointed out, like, of course, they're trying to hijack, digital currencies and everything, but that's to be expected. But again, having actual good crypto solves the unbanked problem or whatever they call it.
Yeah, well, and so here's the thing. Like, it'd be very fucking easy, extremely fucking easy, to just have a program like the fucking Obama phones, but for everywhere. It'd be easy. It'd be so easy. But they don't do that. Like, and they don't like say, hey, just, sign up for our phone and download the Koinonia wallet, because that would be too easy. And it would make them seem less relevant. And they don't want to seem less relevant. And like, for anyone who thinks that that's going to damage sustainable development because my cryptocurrency is bad for environment, read my article on how the dollar is the actual thing killing the planet. And most people who talk shit about cryptocurrencies are fucking hypocrites.
Yeah.
You can just look at all these bank skyscrapers and alone, just that alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bank guys, just the bank branches. There's so many bank branches like that. Where I live, everyone has a giant ass air conditioner, and they're open, this and that. Yeah, that's so much energy, that all that's being used, and for the most part, unnecessary.
Yeah,
absolutely. We have technologies now that make them obsolete.
Yeah,
so.
And of course, all banking. My app that I use for my bank uses electricity. I don't know why they think it doesn't.
And what's fucking hilarious is all the gamers who don't like cryptocurrency, and the real reason is because they're blaming cryptocurrencies for the shortage on things like GPUs and shit. And then they don't realize the irony in them suddenly taking the environmental position that using those GPUs is bad.
Look, man, everything's about trade-offs. If we're going to sacrifice some of the environment, what's more important? Banking freedom or black ops?
Yeah.
You got to make a call sometimes.
Yeah. Priorities.
Yeah.
I got to say Pokemon Go is more important. So.
Well, Pokemon Go is a CIA op, so.
Yeah, no, bad joke. But anyways. Let's get on.
Well, but
I know not many of them get by Jeremiah.
the powers that should not be would really like you to think that Pokemon Go is very important. Just that's all I'm saying.
It does look like a lot of fun. I gotta admit, I've never played.
Does?
But kind
it looks
of.
It looks like
super
a
boring actually. Yeah,
really, it seems like it'd be like a fun scavenger hunt.
A digital scavenger.
See, I wouldn't care about that at all until I could battle Pokemon in my ARG. Why am I not battling Pokemon in my ARG? Why am I not having Pokemon gym fights on the street. Like, that's what they were advertising in the beginning. They were saying we're eventually going to get there. Like, why can't I, like, on my sidewalk have, like, my fucking Feraligatr Pona Charizard, because Charizard's overrated as fuck?
I don't know.
Feraligatr will always have a special place in my heart because Pokemon Crystal was my first, like, next gen game. And so, like, I had my Feraligatr and my Suicune, and fucking those were my OP duo right there. I could take on pretty much anyone with those. Anyway.
What? I love cryptid talk, but
yeah, right.
Well,
if you wanted the cryptid, that's the unknowns, the throwaway Pokemon they built for that quest. Anyway, the
Goal 9
general.
No.
Yeah. So generally, the rest of it is just let's make so like youth employment is huge there, in my opinion, because I think they don't hate it as much as they claim to. That's my guess.
Well, it just has to be developed and safe.
Yeah, and good for the environment and gender neutral. So your child's slaves, they'll be, if they choose a pronoun, you can say that, and then you'll be fine. So then we get to goal 9: build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Hemp.
Yeah, hemp's nice.
Yeah, just hemp. You could just hemp and then hemp. And then if you hemped with some aquaponics, you could hemp and fish and have hemp shirts that you like hemp pants, hemp fish nets for your hemp raising fish, hemp plastics that you could package your hemp fish in, like hemp. But no, they're not going to say that because that's Schedule 1 narcotic, and it justifies violence that they want. They're totally non-violent, though. They really emphasized that last time. They're all about non-violence until you bring up the fact that they're incredibly fucking violent people. Develop quality, reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, including regional and transborder infrastructure to support economic development and human well-being with a focus on affordable and equitable access for all, except hemp farmers. Promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and by 2030, significantly raise industry's share of employment in gross domestic product in line with national circumstances and double its share in least developed countries, except the places with hemp farmers. Increase the access of small-scale industrial and other enterprises, in particular in developing countries, to financial services, including affordable credit and their integration into value chains and markets, except if those people want to use financial services to grow hemp. By 2030, upgrade infrastructure and retrofit industries to make them sustainable with increased resource use efficiency and greater adoption of clean and environmentally sound technologies and industrial processes, with all countries taking action in accordance with their respective capabilities, except hemp. Enhance scientific research, upgrade the technological capabilities of industrial sectors in all in all countries, in particular developing countries, including by 2030, encouraging innovation and substantially increasing the number of research and development workers for 1 million people in public and private research and development spending, unless that spending or those people are doing anything with hemp. Facilitate a sustainable and resilient infrastructure development in developing countries through enhanced financial, technological, and technical support to African countries, least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states, except if that has something to do with hemp.
They'd be great for hemp.
Yeah, right? Support domestic technology development, research, and innovation in developing countries, including by ensuring a conducive policy environment for inter alia industrial diversification and value addition to commodities, except hemp. Significantly increase access to information and communications technology and strive to provide universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by 2020 so that they can find out how much we hate hemp. Anyway,
so hemp was like, I know this isn't actually the case, but like so they supposedly legalized it, right? Or left it on a state to state basis. And even like, Florida, like quote unquote legalized it. but it's like you still can't like grow it or whatever. Like it is really ridiculous. It's probably different in every state. But yeah, man, I've always loved hemp, and I'd love to be able to to grow it. They're still in the quote unquote testing phase here or whatever, and it's so fucking ridiculous. One of the issues that they have in the South is that to legally be considered hemp, it has to be under what, like 0.3% THC. And it's something like you can't grow hemp under whatever parallel that like all of Florida is encompassed in without the heat. Like it makes it, because it stresses it or whatever, it makes it have higher THC. So like you can't like grow hemp that meets that criteria down here like easily. And of course, even if you're trying, but one of your plants happens to have too much, if they come in and test it, boom, suddenly you're growing weed, now suddenly it's terrible. And they always test the top cola, the most THC ridden part of the plant whenever they do their test. So it's really ridiculous. And then I think the other thing is if you do grow it, you basically give up like your Fourth Amendment, like they can just come search your shit anytime they want. And it's just, obviously such a ridiculous hassle. I think there's a lot of other rules like minimum acreages and this and that. And anyhow, yeah, it's really onerous and such a bitch, dude, because I'd just even like to grow it as a cover crop,
Yes.
Just even if I just mow it down once it grows, it'd be great for that. But what are you going to do? Instead, I grow something called sun hemp, which has no relation whatsoever, but it's a great cover crop. So, and just the fact that it's called hemp, I like.
Well, and the worst part of all of that is that, fuck the feds. Like THC isn't bad either, and you should be able to do that if you want.
Of course.
Like, so the fact is that, like, even if it had that, I just have to do a little more refinement to pull out the THC, and then I have THC tincture I can sell to people with like arthritis and people like who need the THC element of it for one reason or another. No, you can't do that. Schedule 1 has no medical benefit, despite the U.S. government itself literally holding the patent on the chemical that's in there. That's not proof. You're bad. So
yeah, it really is an amazing plan all around, man.
And like I really emphasized hemp, but like there's so many other like sustainable things. Like even just switching to cryptocurrencies would make a lot more countries more sustainable. El Salvador, I still don't like that they're making it the official national currency, right? Because I think that that's bad for privacy in the long run. Because eventually people are going to like use this, like it's an open blockchain. Unless people are given the ability to like use things like Wasabi, like this is going to turn into like a sort of Bitcoin cabal where people are like barred from using privacy enhancing technologies that would make Bitcoin private, and they can't use non like Bitcoin things in that country because that's the national currency now. So they're basically forced onto an open platform where they can be constantly spied on. That's my concern with it. I don't know that that's going to happen. I wouldn't put money on it, but I'd certainly stake like a few sentences in a podcast on it. That's what I think is going to happen.
I can just say I am very interested to see what happens either way.
Yeah. But like at the same time, like just switching to cryptocurrencies would be great for sustainable industrialization, but no, they won't do that. Like allowing them to like participate in the global economy directly rather than like siphoning shit through warlords and shit like that. That would help dramatically too. And there's just like so much that would help, like stopping these corporations, not giving them leniency anymore, like treating them like you would everybody else and removing their special protections. That'd be fucking grand, wouldn't it? But no, that's not going to happen. Because then, these corporations couldn't wander around in the background hiring child slave labor and dramatically benefiting the basically whatever mafia they want, whether that be a COBOL mafia for like computer parts or whatever, or like a cacao mafia for chocolate, Like, it's always just organized crime that these corporations get to support because they're treated as separate. That's really bad for sustainability and industrialization, but you're not allowed to say these things because capitalism good. We have to, America's great, just accept it. So
USA. It's just the most fun thing to chant. I can't help it. I just never get the opportunity. So
goal 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. Progressively achieve and sustain income growth of the bottom 40% of the population at a rate higher than the national average. Yeah. How will we do that? Oh, well, we'll make them man the machines. They'll certainly do better than they were, but that doesn't mean that they have to do as well as the bottom 1% in our country. Our bottom 1% is like their fucking middle class in a lot of these places. That's not allowed. We're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to say that in like bottom 40% increasing would be like super easy to do, relatively speaking, and like they would be able to do it much easier if they were willing to have like child slaves and a bunch of shit like that. I wonder why they would want youth unemployment to be so high. Empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all, irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or economic or other status. Notice they didn't say gender there. I guess you can't be trans in a Muslim country, so they're not going to push that too hard. Ensure equal opportunity and reduce inequalities of outcome, including by eliminating discriminatory laws, policies, and practices, promoting appropriate legislation, policies, and action in this regard. Adopt policies, especially fiscal, wage, and social protection policies, and progressively achieve greater equality. Improve the regulation and monitoring of global financial markets and institutions, and strengthen the implementation of such regulations. Wow. I wonder if a global blockchain-based ID and banking system would improve the regulation and monitoring of global financial markets and institutions and strengthen the implementation of such regulations. If only somebody had warned them about that. Ensure enhanced representation and voice for developing countries in decision-making in global, international, economic, and financial institutions in order to deliver more effective, credible, accountable, and legitimate institutions.
Hey, I run a legitimate institution here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't do a good accent.
Well, if you wanted to do that, you would ensure enhanced representation and voice for developing countries in decision-making in global, international, economic, and financial institutions in order to develop more effective, credible, and accountable and legitimate institutions.
That's better. It's better than me.
I can do a variety of accents. If anyone needs like a voice actor, feel free to hit me up. Facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies.
I thought that one was interesting when I was reading through this earlier.
Has to be planned.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm not a closed board dude or anything. So
I'm a no border dude.
That. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. But yeah, it is interesting when they say things like that because it does make me think that like, okay, so of any number of things, whatever there is like a big like quote unquote like immigration scare, like what was the thing with like the Haitians, like the 10,000 Haitians like a month or two ago at the Mexican border, whenever there's something like that, it does almost feel like, man, they could really like that could be like a setup thing just to get people mad or create a distraction or whatever too, so
the popular line to spread around on social media is actually a misconception. Kamala Harris was a couple months early for No Nut November, and that's why she was telling them not to come. She's looking out for the homies.
Damn it.
That's funny.
So anyway, after I'm done not taking this seriously.
Well, hold on. I guess real quick, would also, I don't know if this is connected or anything. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's coincidental. Over the last year or so, they have gotten so much more strict about travel and everything too. So, that could even just roll right in line with this whole COVID bullshit, requiring a fucking shot to fly into a country. It's crazy.
Yeah, very planned. Yeah.
I know, yellow fever and the fucking wherever, but shut the fuck up. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, right.
I don't agree with that either. So,
and like, I want people to just be able to go where they want.
Yeah.
So, like, this isn't me saying borders good or government good. This is me saying borders bad and government bad, and that's why they shouldn't be planning jack fucking shit, Karen.
Yeah.
Yes. So, where are we?
We're
at
10A?
Yeah. 10A, B, and C. Implement the principle of special and differential treatment for developing countries, in particular least developed countries, in accordance with World Trade Organization agreements. Encourage official development assistance and financial flows, including foreign direct investment to states where the need is greatest, in particular least developed countries, African countries, small islands, developing states, and landlocked developing countries in accordance with their national plans and programs. So you do all that. You make sure that your money is going directly to those places because you need to develop new tax farms. And you need to make sure that those tax farms are running extremely well so that you can continue to fleece the locals and you can, have all these unemployed and homeless people here unless they're willing to get the jab so that they can get your UBI. And by 2030, reduce to less than 3% the transaction costs of migration remittances or migrant remittances and eliminate remittance corridors with costs higher than 5%. Or just send cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that was another one that I saw earlier that I was like, oh, crypto fixes this, or crypto already fixed this.
Yes.
Like
it's already fucking done. Just send stellar lumens. They're fucking fast and free, basically.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just that's okay. Yeah, that one's already solved. No thanks to you. And I mean, just like, of course, our point with any of these things where they do actually point out legitimate problems, it's like, of course, the market does a better job, right? Or could do a better job.
Yeah, well, and also then, fossil fuels. They want fossil fuels. They just want fossil fuels. And so the dollar is propped up by oil, and the dollar is the thing backing these UN initiatives. So, of course, the UN, which is backed by the dollar, which is backed by oil, means the UN is backed by oil. The UN isn't going to suggest alternatives to oil, which would be cryptocurrency. You run cryptocurrency entirely on wind, solar, etc. You don't need oil. You don't need oil for that to run the banking system. You just need fucking computers. And anyone can run a computer that does this. So obviously disempower all those people. Those people, just like remove their power, force them onto this fossil fuels, and then cry about the environment and crying Indian. He was an Italian. Your way to profit and power. The crying Indian was an Italian. You're like, the propaganda's thick.
They call them spaghetti westerns for nothing, man.
Yeah, right.
Somebody had to play the Indians.
Well, the first spaghetti westerns actually came from Japan, and then U.S. was like, "Hey, this look cool. We'll do that."
See, I was like, because it's so many, like, you look at like the names, because like I like a lot of like the older Clint Eastwood movies and stuff, and yeah, it's like the names and the credits are all. I don't know, vowels at the end, very Italian, for sure. But yeah, man, you're right. I forgot about that. The crying Indian was actually Italian. That's hilarious. So,
and of course, that was, again, you can learn a lot from Jake Tran. If you want to watch his thing on plastics, check that out too, because basically he went over the fact that fossil fuels were behind those commercials. So they just wanted propaganda.
Hey guys, quick pause here to tell you about our sponsor, DVault Cryptocurrency. Ticker symbol DVT is a low cap coin with a market cap around 900,000. So there could be room for opportunity here. Not financial advice, but we really like this project.
Yeah, the DVault core wallet is one of the best I've ever seen. Very user-friendly, super easy to use with cold staking rewards, so it's like getting interest. They're working on privacy with Terraform, also DeFi to decentralize and replace financial institutions.
So go ahead and check them out over at dvault.cc and get you a DVault core wallet today. Also, be sure to check out the show notes to find exchanges that they are traded on. With that said, let's get back to the show.
Anyway.
So this next one, Goal 11, looks interesting.
Yep. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services, and upgrade slums. Provide access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems for all, improving road safety, notably by expanding public transport with special attention to the needs of those in vulnerable situations, women, children, persons with disabilities, and older persons. I like how they say persons instead of people. It's always interesting to read that word when they could just say people. It's a shorter word.
Dehumanizing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. By 2030, enhance inclusive and sustainable urbanization and capacity for participatory, integrated, and sustainable human settlement planning and management in all countries. Strengthen efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. Bullshit.
That's interesting.
Like they bomb cultural sites. They allow cultural sites to be desecrated by corporations. They're not doing shit for that anyway. They rape people. This is the UN. They rape boys. Let's remember that. Let's remember that they rape kids.
They're the ones who tell me I can't fly my Confederate flags. What the fuck?
And they're not interested in natural heritage. They're just interested in fucking like replacing other people's heritage with their own. And then you get significantly reduce the number of deaths and the number of people affected, and substantially decrease the direct economic losses relative to global gross domestic product caused by disasters, including water-related disasters, with a focus on protecting the poor people in vulnerable situations. But then, if anything happens to them, tell them not to come here. Please. No, do not come. And call them an invasion if they do, especially if you're Haiti and your country was heavily impacted by U.S. economic policies more than once, and Hillary Clinton raided her own charity so that she wouldn't have to fucking basically give them anything. So a lot of people who thought they were helping Haiti were just giving Hillary Clinton money. All this, that's fine. We'll ignore that. That doesn't. So, by 2030, significantly reduce the number of deaths and the number of people affected, and substantially decrease the direct economic losses. Oh, I already read that. All right. Reduce the adverse per capita environmental impact of cities, including by paying special attention to air quality and municipal and other waste management. Not in China, though. They can be the cesspit of the world because China and surrounding countries had such bad pollution that they installed fake skylines. These billboards with fake skies on them that people could pose next to or look at to remember what it looked like when the sky was there.
Is China a UN member?
Let me check. I believe so. Yeah. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be.
Is like Russia a UN member? Probably not. Is Russia?
I think both of them are UN members.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, who are they excluding these days?
China is one of the charter members of the UN and is one of five and is one of 5 permanent members of the Security Council.
Yeah. China's a big one.
Like I seem to remember them being like the center of the whole fucking thing. Because the Security Council,
the US
it looks like Russia as of December 91
is on the Security Council.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I'm reading it now. It's China, France, Russia, UK, US, Estonia, India, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico, Niger, Norway, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Tunisia, and Vietnam. But not Palestine. Palestine once regularly did this protest where they would bring in this little foam chair and they would get a seat at the United Nations even though they weren't really allowed one. It was fucking funny. Anyway,
that's interesting.
So the place continues. Provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces, in particular for women and children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. Men can get fucked.
Yeah, men don't deserve. Well, men spend so much time doing toxic things like hunting in the woods that they need they just need to provide it for women.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Older people, so once you're an old man, you'll be, or once you break yourself doing one of the many jobs that men do that are harder and more dangerous.
They just want to make sure that in the cities that they're going to try and usher us all to live in, that we have a nice green space so we can remember what it was like. Or actually, that's probably not what they want. We just want to tickle our natural inclination for green spaces, just enough to keep us from going too insane.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I can live with that. That came out as a coherent thought. All right, I'm doing okay.
Support positive economic, social, and environmental links between urban, peri-urban. I love how peri-urban. You're peri-urban now. You're not suburban. You're peri-urban. We're not going to call you sub, even though we still think you're sub, but you're peri-urban.
I've never heard that before.
And rural areas, I've heard it a few times. It always sucks to hear. By strengthening national and regional development planning. By 2020, substantially increased the number of cities and human settlements adopting and implementing integrated policies and plans toward inclusion, resource efficiency, mitigation, and adaptation to climate change, resilience to disasters, and develop and implement in line with the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction 2015 to 2030, holistic disaster risk management at all levels. Support least developed countries, including through financial and technical assistance in building sustainable and resilient buildings, utilizing local materials.
Not hemp.
Yeah. Anything but hemp. And definitely in that green space, don't include any green. No hemp. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Fucking obvious bullshit. Like, all of this is obvious bullshit. And of course, we're still fossil fueling, so these green spaces, they'll just be like a filtration system at the center of the city. So the more peri-urban you get, the less access you'll have to clean air because you'll be further away from the biome.
Yeah, well, something's got to make the oxygen.
Another thing too that I pointed out in the previous episode is that a lot of these goals, like if I wanted to do the exact opposite of, like if I wanted to basically, like, I forget which goal it was, but if I wanted to, starve people, I would put in, or if I wanted to, end poverty, I would put in floors or whatever, or
centrally plan food and hunger.
Yeah, minimum
wage. We want to help the economy. Let's centrally plan it.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff, it's like, okay, you're actually doing the exact opposite of what you're saying you're trying to do. So yeah. Anyways,
and of course, like these developed, less developed countries, they're fucking gold mines for state capitalists, because all they have to do is get a grant or something, and then they can come in like the white saviors they are and be like, you need us now. And of course, eventually they will, because the entire like local ecology will be completely converted to their needs. That being extremely loose term, and like the diversity that already existed there won't anymore because it can't. Like, there are so many species in the ocean, for instance, that have just gone extinct because of the waste that's been in there. They haven't even need to be overfished or anything, just like, they choked or their bodies couldn't handle the microplastics or something like that, but that doesn't matter. And also probably countless more that, like, you'll go down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench and find human waste down there somehow. Fucking humans suck so much ass. Anyway.
I'm a human.
Hey.
Jeremiah's a depopulationist.
I will.
You heard it here first, guys.
Some humans.
We got him.
But I can't speak for humans anyway. I'm a hedgehog, so
shit.
I've gone too fast and I've risen above.
Transspeciesist.
Yeah, right. Respect my pronouns. Anyway.
All right, Gold 12. We're cooking.
We can't diss him now. He's trans. So
yeah. I'm a protected species.
Yeah, protected.
Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Implement the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production. All countries taking action, with developed countries taking the lead, taking into account the development and capabilities of developing countries. So that
I don't think that meant anything.
It did.
What is the 10-year framework? of programs.
That's an episode in itself. Like all these, this, like for instance, like it directly referenced the Sendai framework. There's a bunch of different things that have already been written that they're talking about. So like, if you want to look into these things, you can. If you want us to do another episode on someday that isn't this, I'd be glad to do that, because there's a lot of plans in here that just are that.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing when I was looking into this is, yeah, it's like, oh, there's actually a lot of other things that came before this, you know, that are still in the works, you know, so that makes sense. So much trash.
Yeah. like I was saying before. And you know, I made a TikTok because I'm on TikTok now. You can find me on TikTok. Insanity is free, even though I hate the place. And I'm only doing this to see how many conspiracy theories I can post before I'm banned. But the general thing, like the last thing I posted was the fact that like the state funded these unhealthy lifestyles and is now seeking to mandate people's liberty away as a result of a virus that was especially susceptible to them because of the unhealthy lifestyles the state has funded. They're such good people.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can feel free to stitch and duet any of my fucking shit. Like I try to make it under a minute so that people can do that. So if you disagree with something I say, or if you want to add to it, feel free, but whatever. So achieve the sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources, except hemp. Have per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer levels and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. Unless we're pouring bleach on food for homeless people or raiding raw farms or something like that. We're awesome. Definitely listen to us.
Yeah, we're just complete overregulation of the food industry, you know, making it very difficult to make use of those items or to get them to market quick enough, or just so many more reasons you would have to throw them away.
Or raw milk.
Yeah, or raw milk, yeah.
Just let it rot, and also, like, as a government, pay farmers to destroy their crops. Yeah, that's good. We'll stick with that. We'll claim we hate poverty while doing that.
During the Great Depression.
Like, and also, like, let's be super clear here and say that all this food could simply be given away. The state knows that would be terrible for their fascism, so they don't do that. Instead, they pay people to destroy the food instead of giving it away. They're perfectly good crops.
Well, they'll even admit it's to keep prices high. You know, it's so that farmers can make more money. You know,
and so instead of feeding the homeless and potentially like serving a fucking food kitchen for a while, fucking long period of time, helping some orphans or some people in foster care, helping nobody. Fuck people. All these people can suck my ass. I'm a fascist. So I'm going to tell people to destroy this.
So it's like we don't have any waste because it all goes to our animals, which we then eat. You know, but yeah, we don't have any waste at our farm. You know,
and that's one of the
composted or fed.
That's one of the great things about all these vegans who are like, oh, you need to stop eating beef because it's bad for the water. But then they only eat certain parts of the wheat or the oats or whatever, and they ignore the fact that all that waste product needs to go somewhere. So where does it go? Cow feed, bitch.
Yep.
Fucking worthless. Anyway, I'm not cynical at all. So achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes through their life cycle in accordance with agreed international frameworks, and significantly reduce their release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse impacts on human health and the environment. Like those are separate. You're very smart. Substantially reduce waste generation. They could have just said the environment. These people are such vapid cunts. I hate them. By 2030, substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. No, you're not actually going to do that because you still support fossil fuels, and that means plastics are still going to be used more than ever. And plastics aren't recyclable, most of them. They just have this fucking bullshit symbol on them that only one. If you ever see a symbol that doesn't have hollow arrows, like the normal recycling symbol we all got used to, and it's not 1 or 2 in the center of that triangle, it's not recyclable. It's literally just a propaganda thing, because they include this symbol because it looks enough like the recycling symbol, but it's not actually recyclable. It's resin identification code. So if it's not 1 or 2, it can't be recycled.
It lets you know you got the right one to cook meth in, though. If it's the right, number, because it won't melt through. At least that's what Breaking Bad taught me. They were disposing of a body. That's what it was. The acid wouldn't eat through it. Yeah. So, it's an important number for some things, but, it's not all recyclable. And recycling in general, it's like, here's the thing. If somebody's paying you for the item, it's recyclable. If nobody's paying you for the item, it's ending up in the fucking trash. You know what I mean? Because if it's recyclable, it's a commodity like aluminum or steel or what the fuck ever. You know what I mean? And
glass is the best.
Yeah, I like this. And unfortunately, nobody, they don't recycle it here, It's one of the things that's not recyclable. I guess, and I'm not saying that I don't want it recycled or anything, but I guess it's like, it's not like it's plastic that it's necessarily like toxic, It's just like it was sand and it's going to go sit in a landfill. I don't know. I guess it's not the most terrible thing, but we reuse a shit ton of jars around our house. So we do our best.
If that's the thing about glass, though, is that it dissolves. It's biodegradable because it comes from just it's glass. So you could actually just use them for like gun practice, or like literally just melt them down and make your own glass things.
Yeah. Anyway. And a lot of it's just reusable, for like, again, jars and stuff, if you like have an old pickle jar, it's great.
I reuse some old chicken broth jars that were like culinary stock that was like seasoned well, that I had, and I reuse those for bone broth now. I'll like cook like a 12-hour bone broth recipe and then strain it through bullshit, and then I have extremely nutrient. I have a TikTok on that. It was my first TikTok I ever put out. And of course, when I put out a cooking TikTok, I put it to Sonic music because of course. But
of course,
like the general vibe of bone broth is you can use it in so many fucking things, and it's like extremely healthy, but people throw out their bones too. So anyway.
Yeah, but bone broth is good for your like digestive system and everything like that too.
Yeah, it's good for everything. Yeah.
Next point on the 2030 agenda.
Yep. So we were at
12.6 is next.
Was it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Encourage companies, especially large and transnational companies, to adopt sustainable practices and to integrate sustainability information into the reporting cycle. Trust corporations; they never lie. Promote public procurement practices. Promote public procurement practices. Promote public procurement practices. I can't really say that fast. That's like one of those like tongue twisters that you would.
Yeah, it's a lot of alliteration.
Class. Yeah, and like the beginning of this did that too. That are sustainable in accordance with national policies and priorities. Trust corporations to follow the law. They do that. By 2030, ensure that people everywhere have the relevant information and awareness for sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. In harmony with nature.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar to anyone?
I mean, it's just so silly, dude. They put this in here as a point.
Brandon, what about you? That phrase sound familiar?
In harmony with nature? I mean,
I don't get the connection.
I don't either.
What are you referring to?
Is a good old big old set of rocks in Georgia, the Georgia Guidestones, where they said that they needed to reduce human population to below 500 million in perpetual harmony with nature.
Oh, gotcha. Did not know that.
Georgia Guidestone in this Agenda 2030. That's crazy.
Yeah, see, so I recognize their language because they all use the same language and they all mean the same thing. So support, and this is what happens, by the way. This kind of, if y'all want to know what it's like to be in my brain, this is what I'm like when I read anything. I'm just saying what I think when I read these things. So this is inside the mind of a conspiracy theorist. But so support developing countries to strengthen their scientific and technological capacity and move towards more sustainable patterns of consumption and production, getting them to run the machines. It's just that again. Develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development impacts for sustainable tourism. It creates jobs and promotes local culture and products. Like
We will watch you.
Like an
We will watch you
international
and
ID
monitor.
system.
Yeah.
Huh.
We'll watch you, monitor you, and chip you,
ID 2020. And then they relabeled ID 2020 because it didn't happen in 2020. So I guess it's like ID something or other now. Like they're just gonna keep on moving that until they eventually get it going. But it'll happen. Like the CBDCs are already here. Like so like they've already pushed all the proper bills through. So now all they need to do is do the thing, and then you'll be in more tyranny. Isn't more tyranny great? We should be happy. So where were we? We were on support developing countries to develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development, and then rationalize inefficient fossil fuel subsidies that encourage wasteful consumption by removing market distortions in accordance with national circumstances, including by restructuring taxation and phasing out those harmful subsidies where they exist to reflect their environmental impacts, taking fully into account the specific needs and conditions of developing countries and minimizing the possible adverse impacts on their development in a manner that protects the poor and the affected communities. But don't get rid of the dollar, which is the petrodollar, which is the reason these oil companies can still thrive as much as they can. Don't get rid of that, or at least, don't get rid of it, because the reason the petrodollar originally started to exist is because Saudi Arabia, a country which is very bad for gender equality and not very developed, they were starting to drill for a bunch of oil and sell it for cheaply. So the U.S. is like, nope, we're going to form OPEC, and you can't do that anymore. It's not at all damage to sustainable development. Just trust us. We didn't do all of this on purpose, and we're not punishing you now for that.
But it's not like we're super friendly to that country or anything now, right? It's not like we aid them in fighting wars or
sell them weapons.
Yeah, nothing crazy like that.
No, we would never. The U.S.
Sure, there's no connection.
Pay no attention to the man behind the green dollar.
Right.
Anyway, it looked like you wanted to say something before the goal 13, Brandon.
Nah, go on.
All right, goal 13: take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. Integrate climate change measures into national policies, strategies, and planning. I wonder. Improve education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. Implement the commitment undertaken by developed country parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change to a goal of mobilizing jointly $100 billion annually by 2020 from all sources to address the needs of developing countries in the context of meaningful mitigation actions and transparency on implementation, and fully operationalize the Green Climate Fund through its capacitation as soon as possible. Or capitalization, whatever. So
they don't have any periods in there. That's crazy.
Yeah, right.
I think they have an editor on that.
You're going to suffocate Jeremiah.
They should have a periods anywhere now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, right? Periods are oppressive. So basically, that's saying that we need to throw a bunch of money at forcing every country to be like we want them to. Because if they're not meeting climate goals. And strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity. That doesn't mean anything. What that means is that they want people to be like better capable, if anything, of like dealing with disasters, maybe, or dealing with things that come up. But how can you tell that? So it basically means nothing. It says we're going to give them a bunch of money, and if they say that they're doing that with it, then we'll keep giving them money. And it's your money too, by the way, because it's inflation through debt spending. You could tax America's like GDP to deficit ratio is inverse, like the GDP to debt and deficit ratio. So you couldn't tax people 100% of their income and still pay for what the U.S. pays for. And the UN wants the U.S. to pay more, which just means more debt. It's all more debt. It's just more debt. It's just more debt, which means prices of everything are going to go up and your savings are going to shit. So welcome. So 13B, promote mechanisms for raising capacity for effective climate change related planning and management in the least developed countries and small island developing states, including focusing on women, youth, and local marginalized communities.
So I want to on that goal 13, the whole thing. If you notice up at the title of goal 13, there's an asterisk, and down below in the footnote it says acknowledging that the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is the primary international intergovernmental forum for negotiating the global response on climate change. So am I reading that right? Because I read that like 17 times. That they're basically saying this is assuming that, what we say are the,
yes,
guidelines or whatever, they're just saying based on what we dictate or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I want to talk about 13.1, where they're like, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. And you got to love how centralized control, like FEMA, works great with like natural disasters and stuff. Like they're so efficient or something. And it's like we want to make an agenda based off of that. And it's like, you really want to make an agenda based off of a failing model? And so it's clearly obvious that this is just about more, control.
It's not failing, traitor. We just need to do it harder.
We just need it harder. That's all.
So,
with that said,
then we get to 14. Then we only got 3 left after that. So y'all can rest. Well, honestly, we shouldn't even cover 17 in this episode because it's basically just like a really long section covering the rest of the shit, and we literally don't have time for it. Like the closest we could, I mean,
oh Jesus, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so like basically 17 is just like restructure the entire global economy for all of this. So just keep that in mind. That's all it is.
The section of 14 is a big one, but
I think
ocean shit. That's always tough.
We might be able to cover like some bullet points in 17, like
we'll
technology or whatever.
So 14, conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. By 2025, prevent and significantly reduce marine pollution of all kinds, in particular from land-based activities, including marine debris and nutrient pollution. Sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems to avoid significant adverse impacts, including by strengthening their resilience, and take action for their restoration in order to achieve healthy and productive oceans.
2020, that was the straws.
Yeah.
They're doing it.
Minimize and address the impacts of ocean acidification, including through enhanced scientific cooperation at all levels. Funding. Every time you hear cooperation, just think funding. Effectively regulate harvesting and end overfishing, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, and destructive fishing practices, and implement science-based management plans in order to restore fish stocks in the shortest time feasible, at least to levels that can produce maximum sustainable yield as determined by their biological characteristics. So, control fishing more. Set up probably databases and shit, and monitor all people who are going to go fishing, and make sure that they're not doing anything you don't like getting too many fish or whatever.
And of course, further cronyise what I'm sure, like the industrial fishing shit, the big boats that are out there getting all your Gordon's fish sticks and whatnot. You know what I mean?
The cabal.
Yeah, they're allowed to do their thing, but you need a goddamn license to go catch a fuck catfish.
Yeah.
I know they're not talking about just people going out and fishing, most likely, and this are probably talking about big fishing, but of course with anything, just like agriculture, the more regulation, the more it further centralizes and reduces the overall amount of companies doing it. So
we can't let
Also,
the little guy make a profit. I mean, that'd be uncivilized. So
even though they tend to do it the most sustainably.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick second to shout out Agorist Acres seeds. AgoristAcres.com stocks a variety of seeds for your garden or homestead. They also have really cool packaging instead of those silly paper envelopes.
Buy seeds with crypto, support the counter economy, and become self-sustaining today. Agorist Acres offers fast shipping so you can get started right away.
Make sure you use code Nexus10 at the checkout for 10% off of your orders. Also, they will donate a portion of the sale to Agorist Nexus, helping to bring you all the great content you expect. And all right, let's get on with it.
And so, where were we in this? I think we were
looking at 14.5 next.
So yeah, 2020 conserve at least 10% of coastal and marine areas, consistent with national and international law based on the best available scientific information. Prohibit certain forms of fishery subsidies which contribute to overcapacity and overfishing. Eliminate subsidies that contribute to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and refrain from introducing new such subsidies, recognizing that appropriate and effective special and differential treatment for developing and least developed countries should be an integral part of the WTO fisheries subsidies negotiation. So basically, move your fishing, your fisheries to overseas, and then you'll be fine, because they need to be happening in developed countries, developing countries, not developed countries. The fact that it's happening here is what's the problem.
That's a not in my backyard thing. You know, the people in California want to have their oceans undisturbed by fishing boats, but you know, it's cool in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, it's cool until you want to be racist. Then you can blame wet markets for a pandemic.
Yeah. You can blame all the Asians for catching all the fish.
Yeah. Fucking BSL 4 level lab in the same place. No, we'll ignore that. And we'll also, of course, silence and stymie the guy who wrote the U.S. Convention on Bioweapons, who says that it sounds like one. We'll do, yeah, we're the good guys. Listen to us. Anyway, increase the economic benefits of small island developing states. I'm really resisting not calling them SIDS, and least developed countries from the sustainable use of marine resources, including through the sustainable management of fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism. See, just move them overseas. Increase scientific knowledge, develop research capacity, and transfer marine technology, taking into account the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission criteria and guidelines on the transfer of marine technology in order to improve ocean health and enhance the contribution of marine biodiversity to development of developing countries, in particular small island developing states and least developed countries. And then 14B and C, provide access for small-scale artisanal fishers to marine resources and markets. Enhance the conservation and sustainable use of oceans and their resources by implementing international laws reflected in UNCLOS, which provides the legal framework for the conservation and sustainable use of oceans and their resources, as recalled in paragraph 158 of The Future We Want. I wasn't asked.
You knew the acronym for that, though. That's crazy. Or
What?
does your version say that? You said the Convention on the CLOS, and mine says Convention on the Law of the Sea. So I
Yeah,
don't know if you just knew that acronym.
Mine fully listed out. I do know a lot of
Okay.
long acronyms, but no, I don't know that one.
I was like, damn.
Provide access.
You
for
know your
small-
Agenda 2030.
Yeah, right. Well, I've been looking into this for quite some time now. So like I do know it relatively well, but like I know too many things well enough only to be an asshole about them. So that's the level I'm at here.
Well, Brandon always knows right when to bring you in on an episode. Right? We should do an episode on this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, we'll get Jeremiah.
Yeah,
Provide
we'll
access.
go get harder. Yeah.
Yeah. Goal 15. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. 15.1. By 2020, ensure the conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of terrestrial and inland freshwater ecosystems and their services, in particular forests, wetlands, mountains, and drylands, in line with obligations under international agreements.
Completely shutting them down.
Yeah, right? Promote the implementation of sustainable management of all types of forests, halt deforestation, restore degraded forests, and sustainably increase afforestation and reforestation globally. You know, there's a significant problem with that. And one of the things that I'll say Trump was right about was the fact that like a significant amount of these fires are the direct result of forest mismanagement.
You got to rake those bitches.
You gotta like do controlled burns because then the underbrush is taken care of and it's not dry kindling.
It was just so funny to me when he said that, because it's like everyone, like my Trump hating like friends and family, like, oh, like, you know, your president's saying, he's not my president, but you know, like your president saying you got to rake the forest, and I'm like, oh, like he's like, that's not the right term, but like he's right. You know what I mean? Like, you need to maintain the fucking forests. You know, we do control burns here. You know, and we don't have a big problem with wildfires. I mean, yeah, they happen, but like we do a lot of control burns here. You know.
Yeah, well, but people don't like the idea because first off, they might have to not disagree with Trump, and then second off, they don't like the idea because the solution to the problem of fires being fires seems counterintuitive to them. But if you burn away the underbrush, like lightning strikes used to do, for like prehistoric times, among other things,
the Native Americans did for like millennia in North and South America.
If you do that, you get rid of the dry kindling, so most of the forest isn't burning down, and you fertilize the forest so the trees grow stronger and bigger. But no, you won't do that.
Yeah, carbon, like from burning things, is like the best soil amendment. Really fascinating book. It's called 1491 by Charles Mann, and you know, it talks about how, you know, these continents were before Columbus got here, if you can guess by the title. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just fascinating how much like the natives they burned with like prescribed burns to maintain the forest in North America, and then in South America, that's the only way you could get like farmland good enough to grow shit in, is they come in and they like burn sections, and then you could grow in it because of all the carbon it put in the soil. And it was basically like the whole like Amazon, like over thousands of years, has been like improved so greatly by them doing this, you know, forever. It's the only reason there's like fruit trees that grow everywhere, like quote unquote naturally. Like that's because they fucking did that over the course of thousands of years. It's really fucking incredible. And you know, it didn't take a big top down thing or the fucking UN to do that. You know, they ate well. They made the shit work for them. You know, really fucking incredible. But yeah, if you're a nerd about that shit like me, I definitely recommend anybody read that book.
Yeah. So, by 2030, combat desertification, restore degraded land and soil, including land affected by desertification, drought, and floods, and strive to achieve a land degradation neutral world. How, motherfucker? Are you going to pump desalinated water from the oceans or not? Because deserts are deserts, yo. There's no aquifer anymore. You've got to put water back into it. How? Anyway. I mean, get some water here. If either of you got something to say about that, like I grew up in the desert, yo. I know about this shit.
Well, yeah, and so there's places that for whatever natural reasons are going to be deserts, you know. And then of course, when they say things like desertification, you know, a lot of times they're referring to like, okay, places that weren't deserts have become that way because of things like overforestation or whatever. Basically, just the activities of poor people.
Well, water redirection. That's the primary thing that causes fucking desertification.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like when you redirect water from places like Colorado, when you redirect that water, it stops getting to Mexico and other places that need it. Like the water reduces to an absolute trickle, and like poorer nations and places don't get as much of it. I fucking wonder why. It's because people suck and they did this to the environment. But they're not going to stop that. They're not going to redirect it, and they're not going to pump water inland from the sea because they're cunts and they just want more control, and that's what this is really about. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of really cool groups and stuff who are doing stuff like plantings and just all sorts of stuff to sort of claim some of it back, you know, and they're being, you know, pretty successful. It is unfortunate that, you know, they have to do it anyhow, but if I was better, I'd be able to tell you some of the names of them. But but there are some really cool groups that are doing that. They're doing like you know, a lot of really great I don't know, just environmental projects, completely like doing like mangrove forests, replanting them and everything. And I just love it because again, it shows that it's private groups, you know, it's private organizations that are doing the most effective work in my opinion, not these fucking douchebags that we're reading about here.
Yeah. So ensure conservation of mountain ecosystems, including their biodiversity. in order to enhance their capacity to provide benefits that are essential for sustainable development. Have you stopped redirecting water from those mountain eco? Oh no, you're okay. Well, okay. Take urgent and significant action to reduce the degradation of natural habitats, halt the loss of biodiversity, and by 2020, protect and prevent the extinction of threatened species. Well, shit. Yeah, you guys did a bang up job on that. It worked.
Haven't they already been doing that forever?
Yeah, except they haven't been, and
Right?
it didn't work. Give us more money so we can continue to fail.
Oh, fuck.
Promote fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources and promote appropriate access to such resources as internationally agreed. Genetic resources. So basically they're saying that, like, you know, you could science your way out of this maybe. You could, like, just build better species or whatever.
Build back better species.
Yeah, right? Take urgent action to end poaching and trafficking of protected species of flora and fauna and address both demand and supply of illegal wildlife products. Introduce measures to prevent the introduction and significantly reduce the impact of invasive alien species on land and water ecosystems, and control or eradicate the priority species. Integrate ecosystem and biodiversity values into national and local planning, development processes, poverty reduction strategies, and accounts. Mobilize and significantly increase financial resources from all sources to conserve and substantially use biodiversity and ecosystems. Mobilize significant resources from all sources and at all levels to finance sustainable forest management and to provide adequate incentives to developing countries to advance such management, including for conservation and reforestation. Enhance global support efforts to combat poaching and trafficking of protected species, including by increasing the capacity of local communities to pursue sustainable livelihood opportunities, except hemp. So, just to, like, really drive this point home, they're trying to say that the developed countries like the US should go fund international national parks, basically.
Put it all on us.
And while they're doing that, they should act as the sole arbiters of the land that they're on. In Alex Jones's Endgame Blueprint for Global Enslavement, he goes over the fact that they're essentially creating corridors and, like, heavily controllable areas that they have access to all of them so that they can essentially keep us all in this giant dragnet system. That the roads are, you know, closely monitored and controlled and shit. And he always used the analogy of a prison planet. But it's, like, ever more obvious now than ever with this, like, fucking lockdown and shit. Like, now people are literally trapped in their house like a cell or something. And when they try to get out of their house that they're trapped in like a cell or something, you're the bad guy. And so the US is effectively like testing their existing capabilities. This wasn't really about a virus. This was about testing how powerful they were. And, you know, the test was a success for them because now anybody who's not doing what they say is the bad guy, and people will agree to the system being used against those people. And that's exactly the kind of thing that he warned about, because when the US government owns so much land, then they're basically using it to trap people and keep them off the fertile soil so that they're stuck on this fucking corporate bandwagon bullshit. So, like, all that stuff like came true to a certain extent. And that's exactly what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, and I think they're also going to try to push everybody into certain, like, districts or smart cities to basically have greater control, surveillance, and you know, you name it. So, especially
like the Amazon fucking, like, company towns that they're trying to build, or potentially Google or Facebook might, like all these, and then like people are demanding that they get a seat at the UN. Why should so like all that stuff. So by 2020, integrate ecosystem and biodiversity values into national and local planning, development processes, poverty reduction strategies, and accounts. Mobilize and significantly increase financial resources from all sources to conserve and sustainably use biodiversity and ecosystems. Mobilize significant resources from all sources at all levels to finance sustainable forest management to provide adequate incentives to developing countries to advance such management, including for conservation and reforestation. Enhance global support for efforts to combat poaching and trafficking of protected species, including by increasing the capacity of local communities to pursue sustainable livelihood opportunities. So basically, green jobs programs.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And then we get to goal 16 out of 17, promote peaceful
we're cooking now.
Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels.
Justice for all.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even remember the Pledge of Allegiance to know what the line is before that.
Oh, okay.
Wow, good. It's been that long since I've said it. That's awesome.
I've
actually forgotten it.
The line before that is with liberty and.
Ah, yes. Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Now it's back in my brain. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of proximal to this because, like, I have multiple high schoolers who tell me horror stories about what's going on in their high schools and what they're indoctrinating them with. And so, I'm still pretty close to that particular subject because, I constantly hear about this indoctrination and all this bullshit that people have to go through.
Oh, yeah. We've got that one dude who hangs out in the key base.
Yeah.
He talks about a lot of that stuff.
He's more active in my server now on Discord. By the way, DM me for an invite if you're interested. Anyone who's listening, it's an invite only sort of thing, because I want conducive and constructive bullshit, and or at least people who are known. So I don't want a bunch of people coming in who I don't know, who weren't invited by members. So that's the ultimate thing. It's invite only, but. Significantly reduce all forms of violence and related death rates everywhere. End abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. Except if the UN is doing it. Promote the rule of law at the national and international levels and ensure equal access to justice for all. Unless the UN is being unjust. By 2030, significantly reduce illicit financial and arms flows, strengthen the recovery and return of stolen assets, and combat all forms of organized crime.
Oh, now I'm pissed.
All right.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest. They're one of the biggest organized crime organizations.
I would say all that shit sounds like so much fun. What I got fucking with us.
Substantially reduce corruption and bribery in all their forms. Develop effective, accountable, and transparent institutions at all levels. Ensure responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision-making at all levels. Broaden and strengthen the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. By 2030, provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. Ensure public access to information and protect fundamental freedoms in accordance with national legislation and international agreements. Strengthen relevant national institutions, including through international cooperation, money, for building capacity at all levels, in particular in developing countries to prevent violence and combat terrorism and crime. Promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws and policies for sustainable development. So basically, set up a giant global surveillance state that identifies literally everyone and watches everything we do, so that we can get these social goods we talked about, maybe, if we're not lying, and so that we can reduce corruption, because the UN is definitely a bastion of anti-corruption. And like we'll definitely discourage violence, except when one of our member states is the one doing the violence. Yeah, all that. Oh, just let it happen. Just let it happen. Just lay back and let it happen. Relax your ass. So like the ultimate thing here is they've been cranking up all the laws, all the regulations, all that everything for so long that they are now about to like crank up the volume here and say, hey, now that we've done all this, now we're going to make it global and force everyone onto the system. And that's what ID 2020 was. It was an inclusive ID to help marginalized and developing countries get modernized so that they could sustainably develop, etc. I wonder if I was just being an evil conspiracy theorist when I said that this was going to be a global ID system. Yeah, I'm so bad. Please ignore what I say.
The one I don't know if you went back about the arms dealing or whatever, or arms trafficking. I just want to say I shared a tweet today, and I'm assuming it's real. The actual post was in another language, but it was a photo of like 6 FGC9s and a bunch of magazines and shit. And it was like, I guess they've been taking them off of whatever's going on in Miramar. I guess they're allegedly fighting whatever. I don't know who's on what side is right, wrong. I'm sure they both suck. But I just got to say, and I'm going to imagine that they're, legitimate freedom fighters, but I just love to see so many of those fucking guns out there being fucking, like they're being fucking like used, they're being fucking printed and built and fucking used, and it's fucking awesome because if nothing else, it's cutting out all the big arms dealers, the fucking, the professional ones that get the arms contracts and shit, and it's just putting it into the hands of the people, and I fucking love it. But I shared a tweet of it today if anyone wants to go check it. It was pretty fucking cool, and I just love to see that shit happening, and especially after, once again, shout out Jay Stark, after him passing. I just love to see his fucking work being perpetuated. It's so fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And he's at Agorist, by the way, if anyone wants to follow him on Twitter. But
Dag short for Agorist.
Yeah. So goal 17 is interesting. We don't have enough time to cover all of it, but strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. You've got finance, you've got technology, you've got capacity building. You've got tariffs and embargoes, trade, systematic issues.
So, and basically all that is, and like I can just sum it up because it's all going to be exactly just this. You can read all of that stuff in my article on the Great Reset because that's basically what this final section is about. It's about creating universal identification and banking systems and using financial resources to fund the new global agenda.
Let him know the exact title of the article so they can go to it.
All right, one moment. I will look that up. Yeah, because I've written so many fucking things on this kind of thing, but most people just ignore what I write or yell at me about it. So it's exhausting, and it's the reason I wrote my article yesterday because I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted writing all this stuff only for people to blow it off. So I wrote The Great Reset, Exploiting Disease for Profit and Power. I wrote that in January, and it's based on a lot of the stuff that I said already coming true and making further predictions, and these further predictions are what's coming true now. It's really easy to see the writing on the wall if you're willing to learn the language.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, we just have this knack for being right all the time. And, we don't get me wrong. We don't want to be right at all. We want to be dead wrong, but we've got this track record. I'm sure, a lot of other people do too, but me, Dag, Jeremiah and everybody else at the Nexus, we've got this immaculate track record, and it's because we can see through all of the bullshit. We can, we know, historically what happens when you've got these tyrannical governments that take massive amounts of power. Like we pretty much know where that's heading, and this Agenda 2030, this is like a global takeover. This is a global implementation. You see the word global citizen everywhere, and it's really alarming, to say the least. And it's like, do we really want to lose sovereignty? And the thing is that a lot of this stuff, it's like that's, and we said this earlier, there's no coincidence that a lot of this stuff was dated 2020. Because that was the year where they were really going to push with everything they had to be able to get this through. So it's not just a coincidence. It's all out in the open. Everybody can see it. Everybody can look at it, and they do that with so much other stuff too. And we really have to just open our eyes, pay attention, put down the TV remote, and just listen to the liberty-minded people in general, liberty-minded people that are well-read, that look into stuff and know what they're talking about. So, and that's a big reason why we had Harding on today, is because, he does have a very good record. He knows what he's talking about. That's why we had him on for not only this, but we've had him on for the Operation
Mockingbird or whatever.
Yep, Operation Mockingbird. I think we should do like an Operation Paperclip, but I mean, just to summarize Paperclip, I mean, we pretty much just took all of the Nazi scientists, right? I mean, so I don't know if we need a full episode on that, but yeah, I want to personally thank Jeremiah Harding for coming on. The thing about
thanks, man, this was a hoot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about like all of these agendas and schemes is that they're like really long and like kind of tedious to go through. But yeah, Jeremiah made it pretty entertaining too. So yeah, with that said, want to wrap it up with a quote? You got a quote you want to wrap this up on, Jeremiah?
I think, you know what? Let's get cheesy for a second here. And I'll wrap it up by saying that, like, sometimes, this can all get overwhelming. And sometimes there's like, it doesn't seem like there's anywhere you can go without their control. But there's always like freedom fighting capability. And, Konkin had a great way of trying to reach people. He reached people through his free fanzines and his fictional outreach. And I think a great fictional franchise that people should start looking into is the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. So I'll finish off with a couple quotes from Sonic himself. "If you have time to worry, then run. And nothing starts until you take action."
Of course, next is that.
Cool. Peace.